now. Yeah. Okay, we're about 1 minute out.
Mm-hmm.
You say we got another minute?
Yeah.
Hey, if anybody needs a Biden sign, let me know because I have a few. People keep taking them, so they must be in great demand. I put them up and somebody takes them and then I put them back up. So anybody wants a Biden sign, just let me know.
I got 6 o'clock, Adam. Dave.
Yep, I'm good.
All right. I'm
Okay.
recording. All right.
Okay, everybody ready? Okay, I'd like to call the order of the Hamilton Local School District regular monthly meeting. Call the roll.
Mr. Obert,
Present.
Mr. Sewell, Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer, Mrs. Clark,
Present.
and Mr. Schutte.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, section 2, adoption of the agenda. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Obert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Schutte.
Yes. We have any public participation?
No, we do not.
Okay, section 4, items from the board. Mr. Obert.
I've had 3 different parents tell me that if their child shows any sign whatsoever that they may not be feeling well, they get sent home. And I said, yes, that's true. There's a 0 tolerance. We're not taking any chances whatsoever in case that, we don't want to have to go into quarantine. So I guess that's working out really good. I went to one football game this year, and when you have your high school and well, I guess every lunch period you have different teachers, sitting at different tables. That might be something that we may have to institute with some of the parents that go to the football games, because some of the language and I mean, it was bad. And when I finally got up and asked them to be quiet, that they were embarrassing the community, there was some words, but it just really shows a bad image on us when we have 1 or 2 parents screaming their heads off, and it doesn't help the team. It doesn't do anything to help the game. So, maybe if board members or somebody that's selected, just sit in different parts of the stadium so that kind of action doesn't take. And if there's a problem, then we can call, superintendent, and then they can take care of it. But it seems like something that we ought to have to do. We shouldn't have to do it, but it seems like it needs to be done. But everything sounds good in what's going on. So I missed a game there Friday night, but it looked like they had a good game. So, but that's my report. It was short.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Overt. Mr. Sewell?
Yeah, just a couple of things on the community. First of all, I want to thank all of our staffs, our administration, certified and classified staffs, for making the school year work. Seems to be pretty well going back into our hybrid situation. I know there's a lot of work that people are doing now that they didn't do in years past. So I want to let everybody know that it doesn't go unnoticed, and we appreciate it. Like Mr. Overt said, I think things are going pretty well. That's a lot to be thrown on everybody. I know it, and just if people get stuck in their daily habits of doing things the right, a certain way for so many years, I know it's got to be hard to change. So, like I said earlier, it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's very much appreciated. I want to give a special thank out to the Fortress, Obet's Fortress, Mayor Kirk, and all of her staff with the Fortress, Steve Adams, I know, and Rod Davison. That they did a lot. By using the facility, we was able to get all of our seniors who participated to actually walk across the field with their parents. It made a big difference. So I wanted to thank them for letting us use the facility for that reason. During that evening, Mrs. Kirk presented a $50,000 check to our school district, which I believe Mr. Collier's found a place to spend that already. So I do want to thank them for that and their generosity for thinking of our kids and our community. And like I said, they're a great partner to have, and we're grateful to have them for that reason. Just on a not very much on a liaison side, I spoke briefly with Mr. Tyler about, I think all of us want to know as board members on what our numbers are as far as going back into a hybrid situation. And I think it seemed to be a very complex system as he stated to me, as far as finding out the numbers and how the numbers play out. And, it goes into being another situation that everybody's doing something different than they've never had to do before. And I know I'm hearing great things when they are in the classrooms. They're doing very, very well. So that I know he's extremely excited about the teacher input for the children. And we're very excited to have that working in a very good way so far. So that's pretty much all I have. If Mr. Tyler would like to say anything additional about how our hybrid situation is going and how our overall participation is going, I told him I might throw it at him a little bit because
Sure.
it's complex.
Sure. As far as our attendance goes, if you're discussing participation, it's really interesting. It's kind of it's what I was explaining to you. It's a little bit complex. So as predicted, we discussed last month, we have, knock on wood, very, very few cases. We have 2 cases district-wide. We're able to deal with those very effectively. Quarantines, we have relatively few quarantines. Actually, we have almost no quarantines, if not for the necessity to quarantine our soccer students. The kids that were participating in soccer. Our one student who's become a case so far, that student was a soccer player, which necessitated having to quarantine those folks. The nice thing about being in the 50-50 model is during the regular academic day, if you're in the building, you're maintaining 6 feet of social distancing really at all times. The only time we can't completely maintain 6 feet of social distancing is on our school buses. So if a student rides a school bus, and they become a case, depending on the length of that route, we might have to quarantine the student in front, the student behind, the student that's to their side, what have you. But, throughout the school day, we really shouldn't have to quarantine students. So all of that's pretty much gone to plan at this point with, almost 3,500 people that's, in our between our students and our staff, I guess, in our total makeup. To only have 2 cases, I'm pretty pleased with that. I mean, obviously would love it to be none, but realistically, we're going to have some cases, and, 2's a pretty good number for this point. What we do have, and as I was getting to about as predicted, what we do have is a number of situations, Wally alluded to this earlier, where we are, and the term isn't quarantine, the term is isolating, which to the naked eye really is pretty much the same thing. You're being sent home and told to stay away from people until we can determine that you don't have it. Students are isolated and staff are isolated basically for showing symptoms. Wally suggested that, basically kids are being sent home, for pretty much any kind of sickness. Yes, no, there's 2 criteria. So basically there's a list of symptoms that if you have one of those, you go home. There's another set of symptoms where you need to have 2 or more to qualify. But at any rate, they're fairly generic symptoms. I'll give you an example, one of which is a fever. If you have a fever of 100.4, you get sent home on isolation, and you can't return until you've gone through the COVID protocol, until you've been cleared by a doctor, or you've been out 14 days, or you've come back with a negative test. Those are the only ways you can come back. So we are having a lot of people go out in isolation. We're having and again, as we predicted in the last board meeting, that would be the case because the symptoms are so generic. But again, with, maybe 100 people out in isolation, we're coming back, and, 98% of them are coming back to us without actually being COVID. Our school nurse will put people on our isolation list every day, and then she'll take people off of our isolation list every day. So it's going okay. But, to Jeff's point earlier about how do we track in attendance, those kind of things, it's challenging because if a kid is out on isolation, we're counting that student as being quarantined, which ultimately shows up in our system as absent. But if that student, while on a COVID-related quarantine or isolation, if they complete all the things that they were supposed to do, we actually will turn around after the fact and count that student as present. They will earn credit for being here. So we could have on a specific day, like if you asked me today what our attendance is, I could look it up and, okay, hey, we're at 91% today. We could come back in 2 weeks, look at today's attendance, and it might be up to 94 at that point. So it's kind of tricky. Listen, since Jeff kind of put me on the spot there, my report tonight, guys, pretty much was, I don't have a whole lot to report. I've been keeping you abreast of this situation probably more than anything that we've dealt with so far. I mean, you're getting basically real-time updates from me. I don't have a whole lot to report on. There's just really not anything new that's occurred. The only thing that I wanted to share with the board, and I guess with the community at large, is that, we're continuing to monitor this. It's the focus of every day. We're consistently having conversations with our health department. We're consistently having conversations with our mayor's office, because sometimes they can even have better, more accurate data than what our county might have. We're monitoring that situation. We're always looking at what's the best option for our students. What model should we be in? Should we be all the way out? Should we be in 50-50 as we are now? Or should we come back in full virtual? We're assessing those things. And at this time, I feel pretty comfortable with the model that we're in currently. The health department would support that. You all know me. I want to be back as soon as it's safe to be back. I want to put every kid back in the building. I just don't know that we're at that point yet. But again, we're continuing to look at indicators and go from there. I will say this. I'm very proud of our teachers. I'm very proud of our students, our parents, for making the very best possible out of, frankly, a bad situation. School was designed to have kids here 5 days a week for 7 hours. I mean, that's what we're built around. And to have kids for less of the amount of time, or have them in different learning environments, frankly, is less than ideal. But I'm very proud of our staff, our students, our families for adapting to this and getting something out of it. The one super positive for me in this is when I go around right now and I observe the academic things that are occurring in our buildings, It is absolutely, and I have had principals tell me this. I've had, other members of our administrative team, our teachers tell me this. This is probably the best education that I've seen in my entire time in education. And it's not stunning to me. That's not surprising, because if you consider right now we have small class sizes. I mean, we have a class size that might be, say, a dozen, and you have extremely highly motivated people in those rooms. Our teachers know it. Our kids know it. Like, look, we don't have all the time we used to. I'm not here 5 days a week. I'm here either 2 or 3 days this week, and I'm going to come in during this classroom and get a lot done. So I see zero wasted time. Not that I typically do, but I mean, it's an all-time premium right now to get the most out of every class period. And I'm seeing just tremendous engagement from our students and staff. It's a great environment within a building. I just want to have more of that. So that's where we stand at this time. And President Schutte, when we get to this section, that will serve as my report. So there we go.
Thank you. Mr. Dahmer.
First, I want to say congratulations to everybody with the sports. I know we're getting ready to enter the playoff season. So good luck to everybody that's there. Good luck to the football team at playing Waterston this weekend. Also, I want to thank all the, I know everybody's done it with the teachers, administrators, everybody for dealing with everything so far that with school related. One thing I do want to also do is I want to thank the community for abiding by the guidelines and, doing everything that we can for the kids, whether it's at the sporting events, maintaining your distance, wearing your mask, sending your kids to school with the mask and everything. I just want to thank everybody for doing what we need to make sure that we can continue to keep kids both in the classroom and participating on the field of play. Other than that, that's all I got so far, President Schutte.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Clark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'll start with my legislative report and let you know that there hasn't been a lot of movement on the previously reported on legislative items. Senate Bill 358 had its third hearing, but has yet to be voted out of committee. And this is a bill that affects a broad range of education-related topics, from testing to OTES to state report cards, many of which are very timely and need to be addressed urgently. As we all know, the testing windows are beginning to open for different things. And as of right now, we are required to administer those tests to all students, and even those that are virtual, and those that are virtual for health reasons, which as a parent could be very concerning. So I know our district's going to do everything possible to make it as safe as possible if we have to meet those mandates. But it's very frustrating to me as an educator and as a school board member to know that we are putting students and parents and administrators in these difficult positions of bringing more kids into a building than we would typically, because it's required and not because it's the best thing to do. So that's frustrating. And if we could put pressure on our legislators to act on that sooner rather than later, before we get into even the next round of testing windows, we need that to happen. We should also be keeping an eye on House Bill 305, which is related to school funding. And that should be a topic of discussion that's going to be coming up soon. As for my personal report, I don't really have a lot. I just want to, echo the comments of the other board members on the amazing job our staff and administrators have done making the school year a success so far in the blended model. As a teacher myself, I can say that I agree with Mr. Tyler that, kids and teachers are adapting really well in general to this and, are able to get through a lot of things and get a lot done in the same way that we would have before with the smaller classes and using that time as we are. As we move forward, I hope that we can continue to try to make sure that we're providing the most consistent education to our kids as possible. As Mr. Tyler talks about the number of students isolating and having to quarantine, that we're looking at those numbers and making sure that, as he said, we're looking at it to decide what the best model is for our students. I know there's been talk in some other districts about returning fully, even as we have the cases as we do in Ohio rising, and Franklin County maybe more steady, but still not great and still at a high level of transmission. it's concerning that we might have situations where students are closer than 6 feet. We are able to have done so well and keep it at only 2 cases and not have it any spread that we know of in this group at this time, because those kids are able to stay apart and we don't have to quarantine large numbers of students. And I would hate to see a situation where, you know, one middle schooler or one high schooler, or I guess it would really just be the high school since the middle school isn't switching classes in the same way. But at the high school level, one student with a positive case, if we're all fully back and not able to maintain 6 feet distance, could be potentially 40 to 60 kids out with one positive case. And at that point, you have teachers trying to balance some kids that they aren't seeing all week with some kids that are coming a couple of days a week, and still maintain, you know, providing a high quality education becomes really challenging, even more so than we know that they're already challenged in this time. And so at that point, you know, you'd end up having less kids in front of you than you are, as we are right now in the blended model. And so I think that, you know, what we're doing is working, and until we are able to have a way to have them spread out, or otherwise, that we are doing the right thing by keeping their education consistent and having them be safe as possible. I think that concludes my report. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank
And
you.
President Schutte, if I could just give one piece of information to something that Ms. Clark said, as far as Amber, when you were referring to our kids in quarantine, being out, and then trying to keep instruction consistent. So that has been a real challenge. Now, this is the only place in which being in a 50-50 is a benefit. When those kids are missing school, the silver lining, I guess, is they're not missing, say, 5 and 6 days of school. They're missing 2 or 3 days of school. Granted, it's, you know, they have less days. What our teachers have done, and our principals are doing a great job with this as well, is we are problem solving with each individual student that gets it. We're working with the teachers, the guidance counselors, principals, and trying to determine, okay, so this kid is out in isolation. Let's put together an academic plan to make sure that this student stays current. In some cases, it's, you know, a packet sort of thing that they're going to complete while they're out. In most cases, though, we're actually able to have them doing most of it through the virtual assignments. We're able to just maybe transition that kid for a few days into a parallel virtual class, as opposed to having them just kind of make it up through packets and such. So that's part has been a challenge, but so far has been pretty effective. The good news also is that it's a rarity that our kids in isolation are actually out to 14 days. They've typically been able to get cleared through a doctor or get a negative test, something to that. That's the difference, by the way, between isolation and quarantine. If you're quarantined and you're quarantined for 14 days, you know, Wally, a negative test doesn't allow you to come off quarantine. A negative test does allow you to come off of an isolation. So that would be the difference. A kid who gets an isolation, when they get that negative test, can return to us pretty quickly. So at least that's been merciful. I wanted to point that out, but that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. And for me, I agree with my colleagues with everything they have said. Please, parents, community, teachers, everybody, keep doing the best job you can. Hopefully, in the near future, we'll be back in school fully, which everybody would like to see. And I guess that's it. Everybody be safe. Everybody wear your mask. Everybody keep your distance. And sooner or later, we'll defeat this. Thank you. Okay, section 5, Treasurer's Report.
I just have one thing. If you noticed, it's October and there's no 5-year forecast because they moved that back to the end of November. So the 5-year forecast will be on the November agenda. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Section 6, Financial Programs. We have 5 items. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Robert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Schutte.
Yes. Section 7 is Superintendent's Report. You guys
Nothing at this time, sir.
have nothing else to add? Okay. Section 8, educational. I have 2 items. I need a motion.
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Robert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Shooty.
Yes. Section 9, personnel. I have 1 item. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Not having an agenda in front of me. Is this about Lisa or Peggy?
This one is Lisa, item 9.
Okay.
This is her resignation. Yes.
I just wanted to thank Lisa. She's helped me out in the past, and yeah, I'm hoping that she enjoys what she's going to be doing in the future.
Yep.
So-
Seems to so far. Yeah. Yep.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Robert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Shooty.
Yes. Section 10. I have 1 item.
Just the, what's the item? Yeah.
That's what I'm looking. Somebody,
Hiring Lisa, this is hiring Lisa.
right.
Okay.
Into the teaching job. Yep.
That's the 1 item on section 10.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Robert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Shooty.
Yes. Section 11, I have 2 items and I didn't write down exactly what that was.
This is the retirement of Peggy Hafey and then just substitutes.
Okay. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I hope Peggy has a very enjoyable retirement. I just want to thank her for her past service.
Yeah. The transportation department had a very nice but socially distant send off for her. Her husband came in. It was very nice, and we're attempting to see if potentially. I hope she's out there listening right now. Probably not, but we're attempting to see if she'll come back and sub for us at some point, which would be great. She gave a solid maybe on that one, so we'll see. But,
I'd like to congratulate her as well for all of her service. We appreciate it. And welcome to the subs.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Robert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Shooty.
Yes. We have no tabled items,
Nope.
no use for executive session.
Nope.
I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Robert,
Yes.
Mr. Sewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.